Well, it's interesting to look out from here and see so much green for St. Patrick's Day. And it's very pleasant. I think probably the last thing you expect this morning is to get some information on how to raise chickens. But a little knowledge is a good thing, so here we are. I'm no chicken expert. My great aunt was, but the closest I ever got to learning about one happened to just a few years ago. We live next to a big forest in back of us, but if you look through the woods, and maybe about 300 yards and over old farmers' fields that are still there, you'll see a house, and it belongs to Buster, who sometime in the last couple of years he lived there. He's gone, thank you. He fancied himself a farmer and added some animals. And that would have been fine. I love animals. It would have been fine if he hadn't become irresponsible with them. Those woods behind my house are full of coyotes and foxes. Anyway, one day I look out where my bird feeder is on the edge of the woods and saw something I wasn't really expecting to see. A chicken under the feeder. More exactly, a hen, happily pecking away at the free food she'd found. She was Buster's bird. But I was afraid she'd soon become the property of the resident nearby fox who only lived about 200 feet north of there. So I went out and I approached her, and she was very friendly. And when I bent over to pick her up, I learned a lesson. Although her body felt like the chilled roaster I'd buy at Stop and Shop, it was different. I was startled by the difference. Live chickens are hot and fluffy. They're nice, So to bring the hen home to Buster, I had to load her in my car and drive almost 2 miles away because you can't go directly back. And so at that point, I became a chicken chauffeur. Buster sort of thanked me when I knocked on his door and handed him the bird. There were members of my family who did know a lot about chickens. Back in the 1920s, my very young Aunt Tessie, great Aunt Tessie, she was my grandmother's sister, had to find a way to support herself. Her husband had died just weeks after their marriage, falling out of the hayloft on their farm. So Tessie took in proper young single women in her boarding house. Most of them were actresses at the local summer theater, the Straw Hat Theater, as they used to call it. Tessie had free-range chickens. And what that means is that they had the run of the whole sunny yard where they could eat whatever they could scratch up. And that included all the scraps in the kitchen. But between that, it turns out that running and exercising makes them stronger, makes them healthier, and between the eggs for the boarders and chicken dinners, tastier. By contrast, today, most Stop and Shop birds today never see the sun, are stuck in a tiny pen with many others, and they only live 3 months before they're on your table. And now we have Jesus today in the gospel comparing himself to a chicken. Now, you're not just any bird, a hen, a mother hen. You'd think he would have picked a manly symbol like a lion or an eagle, but no. True to form, Jesus made room in his beliefs for both male and female. It admired the courage of mother birds who would die protecting their young. You see, Jesus was all about turning what was expected into what was unexpected, if you think about all the things you've read. If there's one thing he teaches us, it's not to confine ourselves to the expectations of others. Even in the darkest of times, He wants so much to save the people of Judea from the cruelty of King Herod. He would become like the mother hen who spread her wings over the chicks and absorbs the attack of the Roman society. So, that's why he said about Herod, that old fox. Judea under the rule of Rome was indeed hell. And I use that word today in this sanctuary, hell. Even if a splinter group of Pharisees did try to come and save Jesus. But Jesus' unexpected solution for these dictators who ruled by imposing fear was to hit them with love. In the spectrum of believing, one end is fear and negative believing that the worst is going to come. And the other end, there's faith in God, positive believing. As one writer refers to himself, he calls himself a free-range Christian. And that's what I'm recommending to you today, is to go out and plant positive faith, even though some things can be frightening. Now, this world right now has given us plenty of what I call visions of hell in the last few years. If you remember the Bible study group down at Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina, they were just sitting down to Bible study when a young white man came in, and they invited him right in. And he stayed with them through the whole session. At the end of this study, he stood up and shot all of them to death. The pastor there, right after, said, like the open wings of a mother hen, the doors of that church would stay always open to all. As the new Mother Emanuel pastor came in, Reverend Betty Clark, she said so perfectly, we have to learn to love the hell out of them. We have to learn to love the hell out of other people. Reverend Barbara Brown Taylor is one of my favorite clergy people. You've heard me talk to her about her before. And she says of people truly following Jesus and not just calling themselves Christians, this is how miracles happen. They shelter others, aware of the risks. This is their favorite way to stand, with wings open and welcoming others. Of course, as many of us know here in our own congregation who have tried to help family members, or even with their own family, or as far as addictions and marriage, one of the hardest things in the world is to have someone you love, that you could not protect. You could not protect them from themselves. Our hearts break when we can't help the person that we love, and they turn our backs on our open arms. Reverend Taylor says, all you can do is open your arms. You cannot make anybody walk into them. Meanwhile, this is the most vulnerable posture in the world, wings spread, breast exposed. But if you mean what you say, then this is how you stand. A hen is what Jesus chooses, which, if you think about it, is pretty typical of him. He's always turning things upside down so that children and peasants wind up on top, and kings and scholars land on the bottom. He is always wrecking our expectations of how things should turn out by giving prizes to losers and paying the last workers first. So of course he chooses a chicken, which is about as far from a fox as you can get. That way, the options become very clear. You can live by licking your chops, or you can die protecting the chicks. What Jesus will be is a mother hen who stands between the chicks and those who mean to do them harm. She has no fangs, no claws, no rippling muscles. All she has is her willingness to shield her babies with her own body. If the fox wants them, he will have to kill her first. Which is what, of course, Jesus did for us, when you think about it. There's no more mothering figure than Jesus on the cross. His arms, his wings, if you wish, thrown open to us, being devoured by Herod's hatred, while he listens to his chicks below, some of them lost, yelling, "Crucify him, crucify him." This surely gives us a different sense of who God is. Like Calvary Baptist pastor Clark Dixon says, God is the one whose heart breaks for us. God is the one who, after creating the world, stepped back into the world through Jesus, and who to rescue us from the path we are on. God responds to our hurtful paths, not with outrage, but with a broken heart, and an offer of forgiveness and reconciliation with love. How do we work with God to protect the bitter, hateful, prejudiced world we seem to have become? We become free-range Christians. We love the hell out of them. And we recognize, too, when we ourselves are kind of sidestepping, speaking out, afraid of the consequences of raising our hands in front of the people who condemn others. Reverend Joe Evans says, "The fox is in the hen house, and only Christ has laid down his life for you." In some ways, we are like those helpful Pharisees. We're happy to be Christians as long as being Christian doesn't ask us to do anything that might get us in trouble. We're happy to follow Jesus, wear a cross around our neck, maybe even bring a friend to church, as long as it doesn't make us a target of the empire. There are people today who do throw open their wings to protect others. We see this now in Ukraine with people like the soldiers and Zelensky himself. We see people who stand up against dictators and would-be dictators by speaking the truth in the face of lies and deceit. It takes extraordinary courage. And it takes the essence of a mother's soul, the essence of a mother's soul. A mother hen, as Reverend Evans said, is not a fierce creature, but fiercely loving. The only thing she has to give is her very life. Back in 2003 in Iran, he mentions, an earthquake struck the city of Bam the day after Christmas. Over 26,000 people died in this earthquake. And one of the few who survived was a 6-month-old baby girl named Nasim. She had been trapped in her home with her mom, and when it hit, the building collapsed. No one expected anyone to survive that building collapse. But 37 hours later, the rescuers dug through the rubble, and they found little Nasim. She was safe and secure, wrapped tightly, and cradled in her dead mother's arms. You might say she was gathered under her wings. God has set us out in God's backyard to free range, to look for the ones who need to have the hell loved out of them, to look for the ones we need to enfold in our wings, and to bring them safely home. That's what mends God's heart. Amen. I wish you free-range Christians an interesting time pecking your way through this week, looking for the bugs, looking for the people who need you to help them pray the hell out of them, and put positive, God-based beliefs before them. May God bless you and keep you all this week. May God touch your soul wherever it's cracked and wherever it's hurting, and help it heal by your own work of love for yourself and for the community. Amen.